Good afternoon. We are going to call to order this special meeting of the Personnel Commission. We'll start off by a roll call and establishment of a quorum. So Secretary Castillo, if you will.
Yes, thank you. Chairperson Zenner Davis,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Goldstein,
Present.
and Commissioner Roden.
Here. Everyone is here.
Excellent. So we will now move into item 3 on the agenda, public comment. We have a 15-minute limit for that. So if you are interested in making a public comment, now is your time. Going once, going twice, gone from public comments. Okay, we will go on to item 4, approval and adoption of the agenda. Do I have any comments about the agenda before we move?
Yes, Chairperson, I was going to suggest that we move B to the first item, just so that we have the outside vendor do their presentation before we get into the budget discussion.
Okay, so if there are no objections to that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda and adoption of the agenda with that change.
I motion that we start with item B and then move on to item A. The
Second.
agenda.
And I agree. All right, so yeah, now we're going to head into item 5, our discussion items, and we will start with item B, 5B. Classification and compensation study phase 1 review.
I believe we have Jan and Rick. Jan, can you, do we unmute them or? Oh, Jan, I believe you have to unmute. Rick, I believe you have to unmute as well. And Sandra, oh, you're nodding your head.
Got it. Okay, it did allow me now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Sandra and Rick have to unmute as well. There we go. Thank you.
Sandra, can you unmute?
Looks like I'm unmuted.
Oh, good. Perfect. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Secretary Castillo. And thank you for having us here today. We prepared an executive summary and a PowerPoint to review and up on the progress for phase 1 of the classification and compensation study. And I'd like to present the PowerPoint to you now, if I can share my screen. There are 3 of us here on the team. Our 4th is unable to be here, but I'm Jan Brannon, and Rick Labib Wood and Sandra McCoy are also here. All 3 of us will be speaking during the presentation. So as you all know, in October of 2020, Berkeley contracted with EH&A for a full class and comp study for all of the classified job descriptions in the district. That includes bargaining unit, confidential, local 21, and classified management. Berkeley assembled a steering committee to guide us through the process. It's quite a robust steering committee. I think there are 18 or 19 of us on the committee, and we've been meeting regularly. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. It's a 4-phase project. The first 3 phases are the study of the job descriptions in the district. And the 4th phase is a study of the wages and salaries. The first phase is nearing completion, and the second phase is already underway. The goals for the first 3 phases are to review and revise job descriptions utilizing questionnaires, interviews, and input on the revised job description drafts, and then to provide updated job descriptions and a report of the process to the district. An overall scope of the study is we began meeting with the Personnel Commission, and then we met with the steering committee. We reviewed the job descriptions for phase one, some policies, regulations, contracts, and job families in the district. We presented an orientation to phase one employees and phase one supervisors separately. We distributed and collected job content questionnaires, or GCQs, to employees. We conducted virtual interviews with employees and separately with supervisors. We presented draft job description revisions to the steering committee and draft job descriptions to the employees and their supervisors. We collected input from both the steering committee, employees, and supervisors, and further revised job descriptions. And we are putting the finishing touches on the report. We will get that to the steering committee either tomorrow or Friday. This is a breakdown of the timeline with dates included, so you can see the progress that we've made since we initially met with you, Personnel Commission, in October of 2022. That was our first step. And our next step was committee. And in between there, we were collecting job descriptions, employee data, contracts, coming up with recommendations for the whole timeline, breaking it into 4 phases, determining what we thought would be the best way to break the job descriptions into the first 3 phases. And the first time we met with the steering committee was on December 13th. And we have met with the steering committee additionally in January twice, in March, April, and we're meeting with them again next Tuesday to present the draft report for phase 1. The questionnaires were sent to employees on February 6th. We regularly give employees 2 weeks to prepare their questionnaires, but we extended the deadlines twice in order to give employees more time. Now, when we collect data to revise job descriptions, we don't just count on the questionnaires. That's one of the ways to collect data. The second way is through the interview process. And we're going to be talking about each of these separately. And then the third way is once we've revised the job descriptions based on the questionnaire responses and the interview responses, we send those draft job descriptions along with an input form to both employees and supervisors for additional input. We revise the job descriptions based on the questionnaires and the virtual interviews. We first sent those revised job descriptions to the steering committee on April 18th, and we gave the steering committee 10 calendar days to send us revisions. And we did get revisions from the steering committee and made revisions based on steering committee input. Then those draft job descriptions were sent to the employees and their supervisors for a 2-week period to provide additional input. Now, I think we revised the job descriptions during that period, and we sent them to employees. Yeah, that was the time we sent them, and then we made revisions from May 22nd to present. We're still making revisions as of last week. We are preparing the draft report. As I said, we will get that to the steering committee either tomorrow or Friday. We will present it to the steering committee next week, and then we will present the final report to the district after the steering committee has suggested any revisions. Sandra, can you speak to the questionnaire process?
Okay, so one of the many ways, as Jan stated, that we engage with Berkeley employees is through the job content questionnaire process, or the JCQ for short. And then later, as Jan mentioned, we're going to highlight the other ways that we engage with Berkeley employees throughout this phase process and all of the phase processes. The JCQ was sent out to 490 employees. Initially, the employees were given 2 weeks to complete their JCQ. However, the deadline, as Jan mentioned, was extended 2 additional occasions, and 145 employees completed their JCQ responses. Supervisors were given an opportunity to review the responses from the employees they supervise. And then after that, the JCQ was provided. The information that came from the employees was incorporated into the current job descriptions.
Thanks, Sandra. And Rick, you want to talk about the interviews? And Rick, you're muted. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Thought I had unmuted already. Can you hear me now?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We did schedule interviews for employees who expressed interest. They had an opportunity in the JCQ to indicate whether they would like to be interviewed. We did attempt to conduct employee and supervisor interviews for all the classes in phase 1. And 78 individual interviews were scheduled. Multiple interviews were scheduled for classes with large numbers of incumbents, and 155 employees were invited to the interviews, and 47 supervisors were invited to be interviewed. And there were, of the sessions that we scheduled, 6 did not have anyone in attendance. So we had most of the interviews did take place, and we were able to speak with employees in the jobs that we were trying to, the phase 1 jobs. So I think we had a lot of very helpful input from those interviews. So the employees and the supervisors then had some opportunity to provide input on the revised job description. So we took information from the original job descriptions, information from the employees' job content questionnaire responses, from the supervisor's review of the content, job content. Supervisors couldn't change the content, they could just comment on it. And we then put those together in job descriptions. And then, as Jan had previously mentioned, we sent those draft job descriptions with a feedback form to employees and supervisors. They had 12 working days to provide feedback on an input form, and supervisors had 9 working days. So altogether, 53 input forms were received back. Employees had filled them out, and from 24 of the job classes we were studying, we did get feedback from employees. And we got 14 input forms from the supervisors of those job classes. We did some follow-up calls. We had some emails, and other communications were made where we needed to clarify and ensure the accuracy of the information we were receiving. But we now have information coming from multiple sources to make sure that we're able to cover all of the information, and everybody has had an opportunity to provide input to us and to make sure that they've been able to communicate with us. So we can go to the next slide.
So overall, your job descriptions, we believe, are sound and viable in their current format. Your job descriptions are easy to read. We like the template. In fact, the steering committee didn't recommend any changes to the template, so we took it as it was. Most of the job descriptions were edited. I think probably all of the job descriptions were edited in some way, with some or minor changes. And after the PowerPoint, I'm going to give you some examples of how we prepare job descriptions with track change during the editing process. 4 job titles were recommended for an updated change. I'll give you some examples of those. And 2 new job descriptions are being recommended. No job description is recommended for elimination, and 3 individual reclassifications are being recommended through the study. Sandra, take this one. Are you stuck on mute? Okay.
Okay,
There you
okay,
go.
yeah, the host had to unmute me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so at this time, we are preparing a draft report for phase 1 job descriptions. This information will be presented to the steering committee on June 6th for discussion. During our steering committee meeting, if there's any revisions that are needed as a result or an outcome of our conversation or discussion at that meeting, it will be incorporated into a final report. The final report then will be submitted to the Personnel Commission and the board for their consideration. Next slide, please. I want to update you on phase 2. 2 employee and supervisor orientations were held on May 10th and May 11th. On May 12th, the JCQ went out with a deadline of May 30th. However, the deadline has been extended to Friday, June 22nd. 135 employees were sent JCQs. 28 employees at this time have completed their surveys. 73 are in the process of completing their surveys. And just as we did in phase 1, phase 2 supervisors will have the opportunity to review their job content questionnaire responses from the employees they supervise. And we're also going to conduct virtual interviews, which will be scheduled shortly after the deadline closes, which again is June 2nd. And those responses will be captured on the job description for each of the employees.
Thanks, Sandra. So that was our PowerPoint. And as I said, I have several examples of job descriptions to share with you if you'd like to see them. So you can see how we went about preparing, especially the track change format. I'm going to share with you the Braille transcriber job description because there were a lot of changes made to this job description. Most notably at the top, the employees, there are 2 employees in this job, and they both agreed that they would like a title change. So we agreed that we would change the Braille transcriber to alternative media specialist. And I'm going to scroll through the job description slowly so you can see the kind of changes that were made. All of these changes were employee driven. And the in a track change format, for those of you who are not familiar with it, the blue underline language is new language to the job description, and the red strike through is deletion. So again, I'm showing you this because this was probably the one job description with the most changes, and they all on the initial sweep were employee generated. But they were also approved by the supervisor of the Braille transcribers. And again, an example of the title change. There's more changes down here in the abilities and licenses. Yeah. So I also wanted to share with you a new job that we created through the study. School Administrative Assistant 2 registration. So there is an individual at the high school who is designated as a School Administrative Assistant 1, who works in the registrar office with the registrar. And she does a variety of registrar-related duties, including requests and queries from parents in regard to transcripts, duplicate diplomas, Social Security forms, education verification requests from third-party checkers. The point is that when I met with her and we went through her current job description of School Administrative Assistant 1, the duties that she was doing were not showing up on her job description. So she agreed that the job description didn't really capture the duties she does. And there were no other job descriptions in the district that were anything like hers. So I recommended that we create a new job description for this individual person. And it's a standalone singleton class that provides admissions and registration services for students at the secondary site level and provides assistance to the district registrar. So this is an example of a new job description that was created through the study. Couple others, if you're still interested. I wanted to share with you the library media specialist, and Sandra, feel free to chime in on this one. In fact, I'll let you talk to this one. Sandra studied the library groups. Are you having trouble unmuting, Sandra?
There
Oh,
we go. Yeah. Okay, with the library media specialist, it was very important to the supervisor that media was removed from the job title for this position, as well as the library media technician. The reason for that is because they felt like the term media is typical in a position here as a library specialist or a library media technician. So they felt the word was kind of redundant, and that when people were applying for the position, it was a little confusing for them. The items, as you'll see in the basic functions, the red area that's bolded, that is a supervisor comment. The blue is employee comments. Again, it's taking media out, and the other comments are employee driven.
I might add, Sandra, that this is actually the second track change copy of the job description. So there were probably additional changes on the first round.
Correct. And typewriter was eliminated because, you know, that's antiquated now. Nobody's really using a typewriter.
So much.
And no distinction between volunteer as parent volunteers, because volunteers are coming in to assist. Also included was author visits, because I guess authors are coming in and speaking to the students in the library as well. And I believe if I'm not mistaken, the other bullets some of them were a little bit redundant. So those were incorporated in other bullets. And then they were just recommended to be removed from the other bullets.
Yeah, here's a good example. Order and maintain supplies is already up here.
Correct.
So we also, as we went through, made sure that any redundancies were removed.
And I think that was it.
Good, okay, thank you. And there was one more I wanted to display to you. And in fact, I'm going to put two up side by side. Oops. This is the instructional assistant to special ed. And the reason I'm showing you this was our first round. The one on my left, the one I'm scrolling through. And I'm showing you this to show the changes that were made, employee-driven changes. Again, additions in blue and strike through in red. And then the second one is the second level of draft that we prepared. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is because we heard from the employees in this classification in regards to the distinguishing characteristics. You have three levels of special education assistance. You have an IA1, IA2, and a behavioral intervention specialist. Let me just make this big. There we go. We made changes so that it was easier to distinguish between the three classifications. So the IA1 supports, provides instructional support to students with mild to moderate learning or non-severe emotional disabilities. The IA2 is mild to moderate or moderate to severe with non-severe emotional. And these folks are trained in specialized healthcare procedures and toileting and hygiene. And the behavioral intervention specialists provide instructional support to students with severe emotional disabilities, behavior disorders, and antisocial behaviors, whose IEP requires behavioral intervention specialist support. Again, just minor changes beside that. We didn't make many changes to the body of the job description, but it seemed to be a concern that these jobs weren't distinguished well enough. And it's very common in a school district to have 3 levels of instructional assistance providing special ed services. And they're commonly like this, a mild, moderate, a moderate to severe, and a behavioral intervention specialist. So we did that to clarify the basic functions of these 3 jobs. So those were the 3 classifications I wanted to share with you. I'd be happy to share any others that the commission would like to see, or I can stop sharing and we can open it up for questions or comments. I'll stop sharing for now.
Thank you so much for that, Jan. Really
you.
appreciate the examples. There is one job description that I think was in this group, and I think it's also a singleton, and I think it's an IA2 attendance or sub management at the high school level.
IA2 attendance or sub-management.
It's not attendance, it's sub man.
Oh, are you talking about school administrative assistant subspecialist?
I'm sorry, did I say IA?
Yeah.
No, right. I mean school specialist. Right?
Yes, I know that one well. Would you like me to display it?
It's a school admin school admin 3 is it 2 or 3
It's two.
subspecialist?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Really got that one wrong.
That's okay. I guessed what you were talking about. Let's see here. Let me see where to start on this one. Okay, well, I will start somewhere and then you can let me know if you'd like to see something different. Okay, let me go back to the Zoom meeting so I can share. And make this big. Okay, is this a job you were talking about?
School administrative assistant 2 subspecialist. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, this is a very robust job. I've never seen one quite like this in my experience. And I should have started the meeting by telling you that all 4 of us who are on the team are all former classified employees. In fact, we're all former either personnel commission directors or human resources director. So we all have experience as classified employees in school districts. And I, for one, have never seen a job quite like this. It's a standalone, like you said, and it provides substitute placement services for certificated and classified staff at the secondary level, but that's not all it does. It is a very busy job. And I'm just going to scroll down and show you some of the changes that were made in the first round. Now, here's the difference. We talked before about the changes that are made in blue underline are employee driven, or sometimes they're just changes that we made ourselves to for language or grammar.
Jan, can I ask, can you punch that up a little bit, make that a little bigger?
Sure.
I didn't bring my cheaters. Thank you.
Is that better?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, sure thing. And then the language that's bolded shows additions by a supervisor. So in this case, a supervisor added that that this incumbent also monitors the automatic substitute management system throughout the day to assure accuracy. Now, this is the first round. We're going to look at the second round in a minute. And you'll notice that the collect and code timesheets was removed, but it was put back in on the second round. So I don't know how interested you all are in seeing all the changes that were made, but we did make changes to this job based on the questionnaire, the interview with the incumbent, and the interview with the supervisor.
Mhm.
Let me show you the second round of this job description. Because the employee had a chance to give additional input, and she did. Okay. So these are the changes after the second, after the employee review. We put back in the monitor and code timesheets, because even though she may not do that on a regular basis, because her duties she keeps so busy with her other duties that she doesn't always have time to do this particular duty. But because it's already in the School Administrative Assistant 2 job description, we thought it better to put it back in, and she asked that it be replaced. Crossed out equipment check-in and turn-in. She said she doesn't do that. Added including dual enrollment for upcoming school year, and 2-tier enrollment to the student enrollment piece. Notifying, that she just had pieces of things that we fit into some of the bullets. And it was important for her to have this added, that she works closely with the McKinney-Vento counselors to register, enroll, and provide transportation for the homeless and low-income students and family.
Got it.
Yeah, so this is how it looks now. I mean, it's in clean copy for the final, but it was kind of a 2-tiered way that we presented this. And again, I'm really impressed by her, by the work that she does. She has many and varied important duties at the high school level.
No, thank you. And
So-
can I ask about 2 more?
Sure.
Okay. One is it school secretary to ECE, early childhood education?
There is a school administrative assistant ECE.
Yeah.
School admin ECE. There's
Yeah.
no,
And the question about this one, this is a small grouping. I think we have 4 of them. And I'm just wondering about the consistency of duties. Your read on the consistency of duties based on who you interviewed.
Sure. So I believe you have 2 of them. My understanding is 2 of them were recently reclassified to a school administrative assistant 2, I believe.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share my screen with you on this one. So school administrative assistant, early childhood. Okay, so the changes in this copy were made by my, I'm not remembering correctly whether there were questionnaires submitted. I think there were not for this job, but I did meet with the 2 individuals, and they did give me some additional information to add to the job description, which you see here in blue. And the bolded here was added by the supervisor because they do provide first aid, but it wasn't in their job description. And then again, this was added by the 2 employees who do the job. So this was the first round. Would you like to see the second? I don't think there were many changes on the second, but let me show you. Let me find it and show it to you. Okay, here's the second round. This would have come with employee and supervisor input if there were any additional changes.
Mhm.
So there was one change to reconcile staff absences. That was employee driven. I think that was it.
And in the job class for this, because correct, we do have 2 in this one, and then we have 2 in a more senior version of that role.
Yes.
A fair way to describe it. Did you find enough to differentiate those 2 job descriptions?
So the school administrative assistant 2 is, there are quite a few incumbents in that job. It's not just the 2 of them. Those are all of the principal secretaries at the elementary and middle school, if I'm not mistaken. So
Did we not have a school administrative assistant to ECE separated out? Right, were they an ECE class or were they just all in one class? Got it. Okay, thank you.
I did speak again with the 2 incumbents in this job, and then I spoke with 2 of the supervisors, but neither one of them had been at your district for very long. But I also spoke to the coordinator of the program, I believe, and her recommendation was that there was a distinct difference between what the 2 who were reclassified do and what the 2 who remain as school administrative assistant ECE do.
Okay, all right, appreciate that.
Sure thing.
One last class, and you may not have gotten to this yet. It's the maintenance engineer class.
Oh, I think that comes in the next phase 2.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Have some. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really informative. I have more general kinds of questions to ask, I think. And so one is, do you give basically equal weight to the responses that you receive from the employees as you do the responses you receive from the supervisors or managers of a position?
Well, I can start talking about that, but maybe Rick, you'd like to chime in on that, or Sandra. What I will say is that we take a 360-degree view of the job description because we're mostly interested in the incumbents in the jobs who are doing the work. They know what they are doing on a regular basis. And that's why we hope that they submit a questionnaire. We hope that they will attend our interviews and then give input at the end. You know, there's 3 different ways they can participate. In the jobs that I reviewed, I did the clerical administrative services group. There was not a lot of supervisor input or changes to the jobs, but in answer to your question, did I give equal weight? I would have to say yes, equal weight, because we're looking at the job from both directions. But I did question, you know, there were a lot of questions that were asked of both employees and supervisors to make sure that I understood what they were asking for and that it wasn't going to step on something that the employee said they did. Rick, I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore. Sandra, that was my experience.
Well, I think when we noticed we didn't notice a lot of major discrepancies, and I think most of the supervisors gave reasonable input. There is always the issue of work is assigned by the district to the employees, and jobs do change. And so we want to make sure that we understand the jobs that have changed, and that the district says, yes, that is happening. And where there's might be a disagreement, then we go to the steering committee and we begin a process of asking the steering committee for clarification, and we may speak to the classified personnel office and see what's going on. But we do start, as Jan said, with the assumption that the employees know what they're doing, And that's really the starting point for updating a job description, which is basically the agreement between what the district wants to have done and is telling the employee through the job description, this is what we expect you to perform in as part of your duties doing this job under this title.
Great, thank you. That sounds very reasonable. Another question, kind of a segue to what you had said. So we, in one of your slides, and we've been told this previously, that the response rate on the JCQs was about 30%. And so one question is, how does that compare to other districts that you've done studies for? And is 30% a representative, it's a lot of people, actual people, even though the percentage isn't that high. Is that a pretty good representation from your standpoint for the jobs that are being studied? That's one thing. And the other thing is the 30%, as I understand it, maybe the 30% is kind of an undercount in the sense that there are other ways in which employees get input. And so there may have been, or this is a question, is it correct that there may have been employees who didn't respond to the job questionnaire, but did respond later to the job description, or maybe participated in an interview? That's kind of a two-part question.
Right, got it. And in answer to your last question, yes. Employees participate in various ways. Not every employee wants to take the time to fill out a questionnaire, even if they're offered to be paid to do it. But I will say that I thought 30% on the first phase was rather low. It varies from district to district. We like to see, we'd like to see 100% participation, but we very, very rarely even come close to that. We feel lucky if we get 50 to 60%, but I did think 30% was low. I'm not sure why. Again, there are employees that just aren't interested in participating at that level. But they will submit an input form when they get the revised job description with their input, or they will attend an interview. And just a quick remark on our interview process. We make it as comfortable for employees as possible. We know that not every employee wants to be part of a Zoom meeting. They feel like they might be questioned by a stranger. So we hold interviews with no more than 6 to 8 employees at a time, and we rarely actually get 8. 6 is a good number, but we always introduce ourselves and the process. And the basic way we go about it is by bringing up their current job description on the screen and going through it piece by piece and having them remark on each of the functions, basically asking them, do you do this? If you do, does this correctly describe the way you perform the function? Can it be changed? Need it be changed in some way to better describe what you do? Is there something missing from here? Is there something here that you do that you don't do that should come off? And some of them may be a little shy or feel uncomfortable at the very beginning, but I have to say that by the time we get into the middle of the interview, classified employees love to talk about the work they do. They're proud of their work, and they're proud of what they present to the students and their school district. And by the time we get halfway through an interview, we have everybody's wanting to remark. So I always enjoy employee interviews because it's fun for me to get to meet employees one-on-one like that, or 1-on-6, and it's fun for them to talk about the work they do. So I probably said more than you were really asking, but hopefully I answered the questions that you did ask.
You did, thank you. May I ask one last question? Sort of a conceptual question. So normally our process, and I think this is what the Ed Code provides, is that it's the district, for example, when a new classification is created, it's the district that determines the duties of that classification. And then it comes to the Personnel Commission to look at minimum qualifications and to place that position in the appropriate salary range, et cetera, for the job. We don't typically get involved in changing the actual job description. And I really appreciate the track changes examples that you provided us. Here it would appear that at some point we, the commission, are going to be provided with a track change format of job duties, essential duties. I would sort of hope that we would have an opportunity to provide input to the Board of Education and to the district on, you know, if what we think of any particular job description. But conceptually, is that the right way of looking at it? Or does it, what is the expectation for the Personnel Commission after you provide it with the revised job descriptions?
Would you like to take this one?
Well, if I understand correctly, what will unfold from our meetings is that the board, I believe, and Charlie, please correct me if I'm not correctly reflecting what's been discussed. The board would be approving at least certainly approving the job description part, because each job will be part of the report in a clean copy format. So if the commission would like to see an underlined strike through, we need to make sure that you have the opportunity to receive those. But if the board is approving the report first from the standpoint of, yes, we're certifying that these are the duties that we intend for this job classification to perform, then the commission would be taking a look at the report and saying that any changes to the jobs or any changes to the relationships, if any are noted, that would be part of your purview for determining where jobs would be slotted into the classification plan. If there's not a change to the slotting of the job, then you're basically being told it looks like what you approved in the past is okay, and it would be okay to continue approving that moving forward to the future, because the board has said this is what we want these employees to do.
I see. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I just have one question. Well, it was a question, but now it's more of a clarification. So I was going to ask if there were instances where the employee suggested changes conflicted with the supervisor and how that was resolved. But it sounds like if that is an issue, what you have then done is take it back to the steering commission and try to come to some kind of clarification of how and balancing those two responses to come out with the right, you know, wording or right job description or right duty if there was some sort of conflict in how the supervisor and the employee saw those duties. Is that correct?
I understand what you're saying, and there were a couple of instances where the supervisor had a different take on the duties than the employee did. But in some cases, I went back to the employee and asked again. Again, we communicated with your employees and your supervisors via email, via phone calls, via Zoom meetings. It can be difficult when you have one person saying, well, I do this, and then another person who is supervising them saying, they don't do that, or you need to put this in because they do this, and the employee hadn't told us that they did that. So it's a delicate balance for us. And I think Rick did mention that we take some of those issues to the steering committee. I also took some of those issues to Charlie and Aaron to talk through some of them, because I wasn't clear on how to go forward with it. And in one case, I got some change from a vice principal, and I went to the principal who I'd met with before to ask about that, because when you're getting different information from different places, it's hard to know, how to proceed. So we did our best by checking with all the representative outlets that we had. And as Rick mentioned, we meet with the steering committee regularly, and we speak with them as well about these kinds of issues. And when we have finally prepared a final draft, we know that it's only a recommended job description, that once it gets past, the commission and the board, then it will be negotiated by the union. So we know that it's still a draft form by the time all the approvals have taken place.
Thank you. Yes.
Tim has granted me a follow-up question or two. One question, and I just want to make sure I got the numbers right. It sounded like there were the 30% for the JCQs was about 145 questionnaires returned.
Yes.
And what I'm wondering is, for all the job classes that were in phase one, are there any
Yes.
job classes that are not represented by a questionnaire, at least one questionnaire?
So I believe we knew that at one time. Sarah has kept close track of all of our statistics. Sarah, I don't know if you could speak to this, or even if I could ask you to speak to it. I don't have that information in front of me.
Don't have all of I can't tell you I can tell you there were 6 of them, but I don't know off the top of my head which 6 those were, but there were 6 that
All
were
right, I
used.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And just if we could eventually find out which 6.
Sure, I'll
you
look
know,
for it right now.
That'll,
It's 5, but yeah, 6 sounds right.
all right, 5 or 6. The other question is, it sounded like, as a matter of culture, BUSD liked doing interviews a lot better than filling out questionnaires, because it was almost 2x the response. And I'm wondering if you have a sense of the unique number of respondents, whether they did a questionnaire or an interview. I could look at those 2 numbers, add them together, and, get my 465, almost exactly. But probably there's some overlap, and I'm just wondering if we know unique.
So you're talking about the 145 employees who submitted questionnaires, plus the 155 employees who were invited for interviews. Is that where you're?
Right. And then there were supervisors who also participated in interviews.
Yes.
Is that
Oh,
right?
yes, that's right.
Yeah, I did some quick math, and that's where I got the 302. And, we need everybody, so.
Sure. Yes, so your question is, from amongst the 302, were all of the job classes covered?
No,
Is that-
my question's a little different now. Amongst the 302, if we knew it broke out as basically 155 employees and 150 whatever supervisors, right? When I
40
compare the 155 employees who chose to interview to the 145 who chose to return questionnaires, I'm wondering the total number of unique participants. Some participants did both, so they're not, unique in that respect. I'm
Right,
just wondering how many employees we really covered.
understood.
Those both.
And yes, I don't have that number. I probably have to get Sarah's help with that, because she's become very close to this process and keeps good tabs on all of this information. I don't know if she has that available at this meeting.
Okay, maybe we can just add it as an item to know. And then lastly, I just want to make sure I heard something right. For phase 2, the 5/30 due date was extended, and I thought I heard you say 6/27, but then I thought 6/2.
And
6/2,
yes,
this Friday.
this Friday, yes, but I think you're right. I think Sandra initially said 6/22, but she corrected herself at the end to 6/2,
Got it. Okay, thank you.
to the end of the week. We're hoping to get better questionnaire participation. Like Sandra said, there are 73 in the process. Sandra, was that the right number you gave? And, but I imagine there were also a number that were in process in phase one when the final deadline hit. So we see that some employees start the questionnaire. You can start it and stop it. You can start it and then go back to it. So, I don't have the number off the top of my head, Sandra, you probably don't either, as to how many started the process for the filling out the questionnaire in phase one and never finished it. You don't have that, yeah. But there were a number. Yeah, who started and didn't finish in phase one.
Yes, I don't have the exact number on me right now. I could get that and provide it.
Yeah, I
Later.
didn't mean to put you on the spot, Sandra. I just wanted to say that although we collected 145, we know there were more employees than that who were in the process of preparing their questionnaire. They just never finished it and never submitted it. We hope we get a better number this time. On Friday, we'll know for sure.
One really quick follow-up to Vice Chairperson Goldstein's comments. I think that in addition to the 145 employees who filled out the questionnaire and the employees who were interviewed, there are also employees who may have provided input after they got a draft of their job description. So
Exactly right.
to the unique number of employees.
Oh, that's true.
Just a comment.
Yes.
That's it.
That's another 53 employees and 14 supervisors.
All right. Any other? Any comments from the union? Any questions? Oh, Jocelyn. Oh, sorry, she's not on my screen.
Jocelyn, if you can hear us, we were asking to see if you had any questions for us. I know Mildred has questions. They were deferring to you first. She's still on the screen.
All right, well, we'll give her a chance to come back, but in the meantime, we have Mildred or Frank.
I'm here.
Oh,
I
okay.
had to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Just wanted to know if you had any questions or comments about what you've heard thus far.
There were some concerns that I did have, and I voiced those concerns early on. One of the concerns that I had was that some of our members were experiencing the lockout of emails from the two-step notification from Google in our district, and they couldn't access some of the surveys. And so what we talked about was possibly providing a hard copy for some unit members. And I think that we did that as we could, but that was a concern early on. Another concern was that members were asked to do this during their workday, and nobody really wanted to do it during their workday. And beyond that, some of us could not see the benefit in this classification study. And I was a part of the initial classification study that happened. I forget what the name of the company was before, but we talked about it. And one of my concerns was that during this process, I was hearing, rumblings about other people being reclassed. And that concerned me because I've been in this district for about 25 years. And when the last classification study happened, it didn't work for classified. And so Charlie, or the director, and I talked about, our hopes for this classification study being a positive experience for classified. And, respectfully, I want to see classification happen from the ground up and not from the top down. Far too many times, people from the top down get that slice and we're fighting over crumbs. And I don't want new staff in management to come in and be reclassed and then we continue to fight over crumbs. And I have expressed that in more ways than one. And I felt like it was met with a good, like they heard me. I felt like they heard me. And those are things that I am going to champion through this whole process. If this is truly to bolster classified salaries, and we all agree that we are grossly underpaid, I would like for it to happen from the ground up. And I rest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, going into this, that was definitely kind of how I saw this as well, is that, we're looking, especially in the Bay Area and the cost of living and all of that, and wanting to make sure that the folks that are doing the work are being paid comparable with other places and with market value and all of that. So definitely am with you in the desire to see that folks are compensated the way that they should be compensated and need to be compensated. So thank you, Ms. Jocelyn, for that. And also, I wish, because it's the first time that I heard about the two-step notification being a barrier to people being able to be a part of the survey. And so I definitely wish we would have heard about that sooner, so we could have and I'm sure that Charlie, as soon as he heard about it, you guys were working to try to figure that out, but didn't see that one coming. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think just keeps us on our toes, that we have to be looking for those unforeseen things that will come up that will keep folks from being involved in the process. So thank you for bringing that at least to my attention as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I also want to note that if the safety officers, our SSOs, have not yet been interviewed, they do not have a place to use a computer. They don't even have access on their jobs to a computer. So that is going to be another barrier.
So if we haven't already done them, then the idea would be that we would immediately say, let's find an alternative to the computer.
Mark Griffin, who's not here, I'm working directly with him to try to find an alternative. One alternative that we had discussed was possibly having some of those employees come to our office, or possibly doing it hard copy. I don't know if we've heard back anything, but no. So
Well, safety officers were included in phase 1, and we did get some JCQs and some interviews were
Okay.
conducted. So there is
Okay.
that.
nonetheless,
Yeah.
when they bring it to my attention, we try to
Yeah.
resolve it in any way we can. The two-step verification, I was working with Max and his staff on trying to find solutions. So we also just worked with the individuals in those cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes, yes. You may ask a question.
All right. Jocelyn, this question is sort of a follow-up to something that you said, and I just wonder if you can give me a little more information about this. You commented that some employees didn't want to complete the surveys during work time. And I think earlier on, Jan also mentioned, that feedback that even though it was paid time, people didn't want to do it. And I'd just like to understand if we understand why.
From me?
Right, whatever.
Oh,
You know,
you know, I cannot answer for everyone, but I just felt like what I was hearing was that with all that we had to do during the course of the day and a combination of where we were in the year, that was a lot for employees, specifically IAs. We don't have time to check emails. They do not have it built into their day. And so one of the things that we talked about in a side meeting, which Charlie was in the meeting and he agreed, that if Glendalee suggested it, that if we had to complete these forms, then we could do them on timesheet. And I'm not sure of the number of people that did it, but we had to clarify that that was actually an offering. And then we moved accordingly, or we will move accordingly moving forward. But that was also an option that was made available to us through this process.
and completing on timesheet means hours outside of regular work hours
That is correct.
okay. Okay.
Chairperson, if I may.
Mark
You
is
have
here.
Mark
Yeah, Mark is here. So
Yeah, so Mark, we see your hand. You can take yourself off mute.
I wanted to actually just add to that most of the people or technology, it's not working technology because of like, I know safety officers, they couldn't do it during their course of the day because they couldn't do it because of the jobs they do and also having a computer to go do it on. So that I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Oh, my phone.
had asked for a meeting to discuss it. And Charlie had responded and said that we could have a meeting in May, the steering committee, to discuss those job descriptions and to discuss those concerns as a committee. And we never had that meeting. So that's a concern because there are a lot of concerns with the job descriptions in phase one. And for example, I was looking at just the job description from the clerical assistant 3s. And this is the old job description. And I think it confused a lot of people because as I had stated before, it says June 29, 2016. And then the new job description that was sent to the employees also says June 29, 2016. So there weren't things that was highlighted in those job descriptions unless they literally took the time to go through the job description to see what was added to the job description. And so I'm just saying, because I went through a lot of these thus far, and I noticed that like I just made marks because I can tell like what was, and I'm just using this one, this is just one. I'm just using it as an example. And I noticed that there's a paragraph that was added to this job description for a clerical assistant 3, but I know that this work is only done at the adult school. And I know that this wording literally word for word came from the clerical assistants 3 job description, because I have a copy of the job description that she submitted to the consultant. So I'm just giving that as an example. That's just one of the things that is a concern. So also with phase 2 that I would like to add, I know that Friday is the deadline for us to complete. And I know there are a lot of people that haven't done it. There were calls that I received this morning, as well as emails that I can share, because this is the last week of school. So people have graduations. We have deadlines to meet. There's payroll. It's just so much going on. So to meet the deadline of Friday, I think it's going to be hard, and we really do want participation. So when you said June 22nd, I was like, yes, because we need that. We're moving entirely too fast. The steering committee has not met since April. We need another meeting before we even go into phase 2. Because again, there's just a lot that's going on with phase 1. I mean, we're talking about reclasses, but the union hasn't been able to discuss these reclasses or to see why. So there's things that we need to discuss and we need to look at. I appreciate it. Jan was saying that there was some concerns with the supervisor and the employee where they weren't meeting, right? We don't have any idea of what positions were those, where the supervisor is saying they don't do it, but the employee is saying, I do that work. But, we do know what work we do. So we have never received that feedback. I'm just saying, as a steering committee, we would like that information. We would like to talk about it to understand, like, how can we come to a meeting? Like, what would we do literally in a situation like that? Because we know it happens. For example, I appreciate Heidi bringing up the school ECE position. Again, that was a position that literally states verbatim in the merit minutes that a desk audit was to happen, and that was stated December 15th. That has yet to happen. I have emails where I ask, where are we in the position? Then I get a response to say, oh, there's something legal going on. But there's nothing legal going on to where a desk audit is actually going to the site and doing a desk audit. That's not saying having to fill out a reclass, because as you know, no disrespect, but as you know, we as a union, we are still saying that the mayor rule states shall. Shall means for it to happen. So we're still in that process of fighting that, because when we conferred with the attorney, shall means that it's supposed to happen. The district lawyer said the same thing. So I'm not even understanding why those two people still have not been made as an admin too. But I would like to talk to the consultants, because she stated that the program coordinator said that there was a distinct difference between the two that were reclassed and the two that wasn't. And that the additions that was made to that job description was given by the two employees. And, there's questions, but I appreciate that feedback. So I would like for us to slow down on this. I had to talk to Pauline to find out, I mean, is there a rush? Because we want to make sure that we do this right. Charlie clearly stated that there will be no reclasses done after this. So with that being said, we want to give everybody the opportunity to make sure that they're heard, to make sure that this is done. We have 500 and something employees and only 145 was done in phase one. And right now, Jan just said there's only 76, but again, there's concerns with a lot going on this week and the deadline is Friday. I know I haven't even had the opportunity to do mine. So I would like for us to consider, again, slowing down and really going back to phase one and having the opportunity for the steering committee to speak on these job descriptions that were sent to us because we never had a meeting once we received it. So you can ask HR. I mean, they're here also. She was there on the committee as well. I appreciate this time. Thank you for listening.
So just out of curiosity, is there, in terms of giving a little more time for at least, as we're going into phase two, is are there any options to do that?
For the sake of being indelicate, I think it's a budgetary issue.
Mhm.
I have been told by our chief business officer that this budget is not flexible. It's going to end on November 30th. And my trepidation and again, I do appreciate what's being said. There's no question. I'm not questioning that. I'm just looking at it somewhat removed in a more practical terms, that we want to make sure that while we have EHA here, that everyone is given the opportunity to engage in this process. So I think, a worthy conversation to have while we have Jan and her team here would be, can we extend to the 22nd without sacrificing those timelines? Because my fear, again, we still have to get through the confidentials. We still have to get through 21. There's still a lot of work to do. And we have delayed this already. That said, I'm not opposed to extending because I want to make sure everyone participates. But again, my trepidation is that we get to November 30th and we are in a bad place where we didn't get to finish the study.
Well, then I guess, hold on, let me just say, just ask Jan if, just for instance, what Charlie just said, if we were to extend it to the 22nd, how off course might that take us in getting completed by November?
Well, as Charlie said, we're already behind. I think it would be very hard to finish the year-long study by November 30th. That being said, Charlie, would there be an opportunity to extend the contract out further? I know you mentioned that maybe not, but.
I mean, I have Samantha here. Samantha and I can engage Pauline. It's not through lack of trying or lack of effort. I mean, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I've been the champion of this since I walked through the door here. So you're not going to have to convince me. I think that the practical reality is that, and again, I have Samantha here. Can Samantha and I go to Pauline and ask? Sure. Can I guarantee now that I can make that happen? No, I can't.
If I may, I would like to say that a year-long study of a district your size is very ambitious. We thought that when we started it, but we realized that the district wanted to have it done in a year. And so, so we understood that.
Go ahead.
Could I suggest that maybe one of the things that would be helpful here is, I sort of see the world in 10-month, 11-month, and 12-month employees, right? Our window for the 10 months closes on Friday, right? Last day of school. So if we are going to think about a strategy to try to get better penetration into that group, it's something that's going to happen again after August 1st or whenever our contract starts. We have the summer, or we have until the end of June to focus on the 11 months, right? And then we have July, I mean, to the degree, I know people, in the school biz take their holidays, in July, but, we might do well to strategize a little bit on, how we, and can we double back on the 10 months in August? And what would that look like? I don't even know if that's a reasonable idea. But, certainly I think the idea for the 11 months, trying to give some time, once all the chaos ends and, graduation happens, has some merit. And then, just being really clear how we're going after the 12-month folks and making appointments now so that we can work around people's holidays and what have you.
I mean, I can have a further discussion with Jan on this, but I mean, there's some things that Sarah and I can do and do. I just don't know if the analysis and the interviews are the things that Sarah and I can do. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Jan, not to put you on the spot, but could we possibly extend maybe a halfway point? Can we extend to, what is it, June 9th?
An additional week?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. Rick, Sandra, what do you think? You see any problem with an additional week after this week for the JCQs in phase 2?
I don't see that would be an issue. I think that's a good option to extend.
Yeah, and Sarah and I just talked today about the possibility of interviewing the transportation folks next week because they're likely to be gone after. So we can, it seems to me that we can do two things at once. We can conduct some interviews for some job families while we're still collecting JCQs for others.
I'm looking at Mildred and Frank to see June 9th, just an extra week.
Yeah.
Of course.
So hello, this is Samantha Tobias Espinoza. So I just asked Sarah if I could see the list of the positions that are being considered in phase 2. And the only group that is really truly 10 or 11 months is the school bus drivers, transportation department. And so while I think that extending to the 9th is a great idea, I think we may also want to take and do something specific for that group, whether it's making sure that we really try to address during summer school, because some of them will be working during summer school again after June 14th, something like that, to try to address that group. The rest of the group are 12 months. It is a very hard time period, so I would suggest extending it to the 9th because a lot of people, this is just a busy time. It's so.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That would be really good if we can do that. Also because of, again, what Mark has said, looking at maybe adding the safety officers as well in that group. And then there is a couple of more like 11-month employees that's done like at the end of June. So if we could be given, a couple of, because again, last week of school, and then just to address the employees that were able to get paid were employees who worked 0.8, right? 0.80. But if you work full-time or 1.0 FTE, you had to, it's hard to do it during work. And yes, you have some supervisors that's going to support you, right? Because they know that this has to be done. And then you have some supervisors that's don't care to do it at home, because I do know of several employees that had to do it once they got home. So then and it's a lot. It really is a lot of information. So we really need more time. And I appreciate and I understand we all have deadlines, but I just don't want it to be, I didn't get enough time, reclass, we just want to really give people a good opportunity. Even if we do have to talk to Pauline, I don't mind speaking to her and letting her see some of the emails that I received from employees asking for more time. So thank you I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and thank you. And so we will, at least do until the 9th. I think anything beyond that is kind of out of our control, but I mean, totally hear, whatever. I mean, again, as Miss Jocelyn said at the beginning, at the beginning of her statement, this is for the classified employees. And I think that even for me, it rubs me kind of wrong that the employer is kind of telling the employees, well, we know we need to do this, but we want to do it on our timeline. And if it means that it's rushed, then it's just, this is the way that it feels to me, that they know it needs to be done, but they want to do it in their timeline. And if that means that it doesn't represent entirely the folks that it's supposed to be done for, so be it. We did it, check mark, let's move on. I don't like that.
So Chairman, I'm going to send an email out tomorrow. Making sure, because the second was already an extension. We're going to extend it another week. I'm going to ask the site supervisors and managers to please participate and allow folks to take the time.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, can you reach out to Mark and the security officers? If they have to come to the office or fill out a form, whatever it is, we'll take care of that this week. Okay. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Of course.
And then we got to move on.
Right, and then we have to move on, but I'm still sort of stuck on the question of if people can't get the survey done during their paid 1.0 shift. I think what I want to ask is, when we say we're paying people to do this, if it has to be overtime hours for them to do it, is that what we're doing? Because I think that is going to affect your conversation with supervisors.
Yeah.
And you may need some backup elsewhere if, the answer is no,
Yeah.
We're not paying OT.
The answer is no. We have an agreement. The district has an agreement, I should say. The district has an agreement for part-time employees to make sure that they're allowed and they're doing during the work hours, the 2 hours for the survey and 1 hour for the interview. But I'm going to look at Samantha. It's my understanding that no, we are not, the district is not paying overtime to the 1.0 employees for doing that. Samantha's nodding her head, so I'm correct in saying that. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, what else can we do to supervisors to help them carve out some time for employees? And I recognize that's a problem, but if we are not willing to extend overtime hours for somebody who's got a tight shift, when are we doing it?
Right.
Right. So I realize you can ask, and I appreciate that. I'm worried that you asking alone without some extra firepower from HR in terms of support is not going to get the outcome that we want.
We'll do it. We'll do one together.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk together.
So the district negotiated the agreement, an MOU with the union, with BCCE, to address for the part-time staff. And the reason we only did it for part-time staff instead of the full-time staff was because our part-time staff, a lot of them, there is really no break at all. There's no flexibility at all. We're talking food service staff, we're talking our IAs. Majority of these people are people who are on when they're at work, with the exception of like a lunch break or maybe a 15-minute break. Some of them don't even get a lunch break because they work such reduced shift. So that's why we offered it, so that we were offering 2 hours paid or an hour paid time outside of their workday for the part-time people. For the people who are full-time, Charlie and I will reiterate to the managers and supervisors that they need to work with their staff to figure out how they can do it. It doesn't all have to be 2 hours at one time. It could be that they do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, because they can come and go out of the platform. And so that was our goal with that, was to offer something, understanding that we also knew that we couldn't pull our food service staff off of serving food to our students to do a survey.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. All right, well, we have our action items and our next steps. And so again, just want to make sure, as Mildred has said, as everyone has said, that we are getting participation by everyone who can participate and who should be able to participate. And yeah, we'll see what happens. All right.
I was just going to thank Jan and her team for presenting the
Yes.
information. Thank you.
so much.
Very much for the opportunity.
All right, we're gonna move on to agenda item 5A. An update on the approved 2023-24 Personnel Commission budget. Mr. Secretary, if you please.
In speaking to the commission, I think that we wanted this item as a discussion item. It's my understanding as of now, although the commission approved our budget and we sent it to the county, the district so far has not signed off on it. It's my understanding SBAC voted 13-1 against our budget. So the district does not want us, is not, what's the right word? Is not supporting the commission's proposed budget. So I think that's, I was asked to bring this to a discussion item because obviously I've spoken to all three of you individually, but Brown Act does not allow us to speak all together. So I think that's why we've brought it before a public forum.
This is of great concern to me. We talked about the budget on at two separate meetings. Mr. Castillo invited the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services to those two meetings. I know she's extraordinarily busy during budget time and did not come. We talked, the commission did at great length about why we needed, and I think the issue is the 1/2 FTE administrative assistant. And I just want to spend 1 minute speaking very, very fast about our needs. We're doing this first and foremost, this class and comp study, and we can see how complex this is and how it requires administrative support. We're doing this as a live meeting and on Zoom. That requires administrative support. It's not easy to keep track of any of these things. That requires administrative support. Secondly, we have listened as a commission to the comments made by BCCE regarding vacancies and the fact that there are quite a few. I think the figure was 142. Whether that's going to hold or not, I do not know. But there's quite a few vacancies that are filled by contractors, by temps, by substitutes. I have heard from directors on the Board of Education that that's a concern to them. We listened. We have scheduled a meeting for next week, I think it is, to discuss that. It's not going to be resolved in one meeting. We have requested that we get a detailed report about divided into categories. Who are these vacancies? Where? What departments are they in? What sites are they in? What types of employees are filling those vacancies? And what are the FTEs for each of those vacancies? That's a complicated set of facts and set of data that we need to be able to look at. That requires administrative assistance. We are going to schedule a meeting on recruitment because we've heard from the district, from the board of directors, from parents, from others, that we need to bolster our recruitments. And we're going to hold a special meeting for that. that also requires administrative assistance. We've heard at different meetings about the statistics on recruitments, and I think they're very telling in terms of what the commission is doing. Our last annual report shows that we went from 43 new hires to 90 new hires, from 45 lists established to 86 lists established, from 22 performance exams to 132 performance exams, and 497 training and experience assessments. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of record keeping. That's a lot of administrative assistance. We heard from the union, and to Mildred Scher's credit, she at least was someone who came to us and expressed her concerns about adding an administrative assistant. We listened to that, and our executive director and the commission, we're not asking for 1 FTE, we're asking for half an FTE. I don't know of any department in this school district, and I've been involved in this district for many, many years, close to 20 years. I've never heard of a department that especially one that has public meetings, that doesn't have an administrative assistant. No administrative assistant, not a single one. So to my mind, I don't think SBAC was properly informed. I know that, and our executive director can correct me if I'm wrong, that he asked to be invited to make a presentation to SBAC way back in February. That invitation never arrived until I think just recently, and after their vote, if I'm not mistaken. So we have engaged the district. We have done what we are supposed to do. We invited the representative of the district to both of our meetings. She decided not to come. I can understand that. She's phenomenally busy. But it is going to be, I'm hopeful, Assistant Superintendent Tobias Espinoza, that you bring back this information to the superintendent. This is not, over with yet. And as we know, it's not ultimately the decision of the superintendent or even the Board of Education. It's the decision of the County Office of Education. And I believe we have 100% complied with the education code in terms of what is required of us. So I personally, and I would urge the other commissioners to do so, am going to write to the superintendent an email, copying the board members and explaining basically what I've just outlined here. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Roeder. Commissioner
Sure, Commissioner Heidi. I think that's fine. So, maybe what I'll add to this, and thank you for that wonderful summary. I think we've all been in school and professional biz enough to recognize that, we all get that the funding sources from COVID, from the state, from the feds are changing, and that we're going to need to make some tough decisions as a school district. When I look at what SBAC is interested in funding, what I understand is that positions that are not student facing are not popular and they're hard to defend. What I see is a set of priorities actually for a number of different non-student facing positions. And apparently we're at the end of that set of priorities, which is, I think why we're receiving the pushback. As I understand the process, we're sort of a little independent mini agency when it comes to funding. And while generally speaking, the process is we work with the district, to come to terms on what our funding should be each year, and we report it to the county, and everybody agrees, and there's nothing more for the county to do except record it. There's also provision for a process that says if we can't agree, we go to the county and we have the discussion. And what I'll say is I am prepared to go to the county and have the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. And thank you, Commissioner Roder. I'm concerned at how all this has come down. And I'm concerned because as Commissioner Roder pointed out, all steps were taken to get folks involved in this process who needed to be involved in this process, invited into this process. And for whatever reason, they were not taken, those opportunities were not taken. To then be accused of not following the process is insulting. Because we absolutely have followed the process. One of the things that I commend Secretary Castillo on is coming in and wanting to do things the right way, going out of his way to try and make sure that things are being done the right way. Even in a system where not doing things the right way has become normalized. And just from my brief experience on this commission, the way that I see that are all of the areas in which people are doing work that's out of their classification. So then they come to us and we have to reclassify them, or we have to compensate them for work that they were doing that's above and beyond the work that they were supposed to be doing. That's normalizing what shouldn't be normalized. And so when we come to this budget process and we're trying to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, inviting people in who need to be in this process so we can move this process along, and those opportunities aren't taken advantage of, and then the excuse is, well, you didn't do things the right way, that's insulting. There is this theory that structures and institutions have spirits. I'm definitely feeling some of what that spirit must be in BUSD. I saw it as a parent, or I felt it as a parent having two children go through BUSD. Being in this role, I am now definitely sure of those spirits. And, you know, I'm not going to apologize if what I'm saying is harsh or is, or maybe I'm not being diplomatic enough, but I find I don't respond with diplomacy when a lack of diplomacy is directed towards me. Or towards the people that I work with who I knew who work very hard to make sure that we're trying to do what's right for classified employees who are what matter in all of this, and making sure that we are serving who really matters in all of this, which are our children. So yeah, I don't, you know, I'm sure that we will get this resolved, but I think that dysfunction should not be a mode of operation. Dysfunction should not be normalized, especially when we're talking about working for our young people. Systems that are in service of our young people should work the way that they need to work. And so, you know, I hope that we can find a way of making sure that things like this doesn't happen again. You know, we invite folks to be a part of what we're doing. And what we're doing here is not a secret right now. It's open to the public. We're having a public meeting here. And so when we invite folks into the process, you know, we just encourage you to jump on into this process. But if you choose not to jump in the process and then you don't like what we're doing, don't accuse us of not inviting you into the process. I am complete.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. And I appreciate being one of those people that's invited into the process because I do respect the process. And I have been very open about my position and where I stand as far as, you know, BCCE. You know, my position is to do what's in the best interest to the best of my ability for BCCE employees. And yes, I am on the SBAC committee. And yes, I am one of those people that voted no. And I will share with you why I feel the way that I do. And as I stated to Charlie earlier, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And the reason why I feel the way that I feel is because I have mentioned several times in meetings the support that is needed in the admissions department. And I actually asked for that prior to the position that Mr. Castillo wants for the commission. And just as Mr. Tim, Commissioner President Davis stated, we're all here for what's in the best interest of our students, right? We're a school district. And the admissions department is a department that bring in those students. They are so overwhelmed, it's ridiculous. I went there and I took pictures of boxes and stacks of paper. And I completely agree with, you know, what you said, Mr. Izzy and Commissioner Izzy, I'm sorry. I respect what you said. And I appreciate all the work that is being done by everyone. What I'm saying is that 0.5 position I feel is needed in the admissions department. And what I can respect is the fact that not only has it been asked for years now that they're constantly asking for support and help, it was asked prior to this position. So I'm saying, well, wait a minute. Let's look at the position that was asked. It was asked for admissions first. So why are we overlooking admissions? I'm not, you know, everybody is working. I mean, we're all overworked, but that department, I really wish that you could just take the time and go look, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about because they need the support. So the fact that the commission's budget does come from the general fund, I would like to see that department that has been asking for support for years to be given because they did ask first. Now, who's to say that an admin assistant 3 is needed? I'm not saying that an assistant may not be needed. Maybe commissions do need an assistant, right? But who says that it's a 3? And then, you know, Mr. Castillo said to me earlier, he was saying that I was giving incorrect information. I've been in this district 30 years. I started in this district when I was 13, working in the HR department. So there's nothing that anyone can tell me about Berkeley Unified School District. And with my mother working for the school district, retired in 2010, I was 7 years old. So with that being said, what I was saying was prior to Mr. Castillo coming, Randy was a dual hatter and he had 2 people, which if I'm not mistaken was Aaron and Anthony, and they ran that department. That's true, in fact, information. And that's all I was stating when I said it to you guys before. So I just wanted to clarify that. But again, you know, I do want us all to be able to work together and respect one another. I just have the right to feel the way that I feel. It doesn't make me wrong because I'm saying, well, look, I'm looking at this department. They asked first, they need the support. I would rather see that 0.5 there. I have that right. So I just want to let you all know that you're more than welcome to go, you know, take a field trip and go to that department and maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. But I do respect absolutely all the work that has been done to get people hired because we are on top of the vacancy list. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mildred. Commissioner Goldstein?
I think one other comment I'll make is that your point about some of the disingenuous comments that got heaved over the transom to the commission, it was bad form, and I agree with you. So I thank you for those comments. You know, that doesn't mean that we can't sit down and talk through with the district, you know, what other options are available to us. And I think that Secretary Castillo has, in his role as executive director, has probably extended that offer. And, you know, we should continue to extend the offer. You know, our intent is not to go to the county. Nobody wants to go to the county. But if we can't come to terms, you know, that's the process that's available to us. So what I really hope is that, you know, we really have until December or June 30th. You know, I know the county wants it closed as of the 31st, but, you know, we have 4 weeks to see if we can't work something out. And I hope that, you know, everybody involved will try to do that, work that out.
Another quick comment. So just following up on that a little bit. This really should not be an adversarial process at all. I mean, we are all working as so eloquently our chairman has said, we are all working on behalf of the students of the district and the classified employees. That is our concern. I absolutely understand Mildred's point about the admissions office. Not for a minute do I think that the admissions office shouldn't receive additional support. But that does not mean that the commission, which is also trying to do a very difficult lift in the next couple of years, doesn't deserve that. And it's only a 1/2 FTE that we're asking for. In my presentation, I forgot the thing that I'm working on the most, which is the merit rules. It's over 30 years since we've revised the merit rules. We're now having special meetings. I'm meeting with Secretary Castillo weekly on the merit rules. We have Zoom meetings. Those are difficult to produce. Again, we need that administrative support. When we're done with this first phase of the merit rules, as you know, we get our rules from our current merit rules, from the model merit rules, from the merit rules that exist in the Los Angeles County Office of Education that we're using as a model, from the Ed Code. Those are all being put together in Word, and they're going to have to be reformatted. That is a huge undertaking administratively. So I agree with Vice Chairperson Goldstein. Maybe we should continue this conversation. We're not done yet with the superintendent. I continue to extend our offer to the superintendent to come to one of our meetings and talk to us about her foci, which includes organizational clarity, which includes infrastructure. Those are the things, that's the lifeblood of this commission. So there may be other areas in our budget that can be modified so that we can achieve that 1/2 FTE. And again, I would hope that our assistant superintendent will take back some of our comments to the superintendent and let her know, how we feel about this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Roeder. Yes, sir.
So I do appreciate what Mildred said. Mildred may remember that, and this body may remember that it was I who, in reclassing Ms. Bevins, it was I who said, and multiple times, that admissions needs more staffing. What I find confusing is I don't know why one would have come at the expense of another. I think that the district should fund both. To further that point, next week at the special meeting, I'm going to be introducing a new position. And there's been a request for yet another new position. And upgrade to yet another position. So it's not through lack of funds. And I think the union and this body are on the same page on this. I think both things can be true. I don't know why one would have to come at the expense of another. Just some very quick statistics, as I was curious. Since I joined the team, our team has done 8 reclasses. My 3 predecessors did 5 in twice the time. We've done 24 advanced steps requests that we fulfilled, which is raises for 24 employees. My predecessors did 9. And in terms of minimum qualification appeals, there were 17 and I overturned 2. There were none from my predecessors. So, I mean, the point is, I don't say this uncomfortably. I'm not saying it for bravado. I'm saying it because we're getting real work done. I wish there was a desire to hear some facts and some numbers and not feed the perception. But I think what I take from this is I have to get in front of SBAC. And I will find another way to present, because I think that these facts speak for themselves, and they do end up serving our classified employees, and they do end up serving our kids ultimately. And that's why we're all here. And again, I would argue just on the whole, I think the district should fund more positions for admin. There's never going to be an argument for me on that. But I don't know why one would come at the expense of another. And that's all I wanted to say, but thank you.
All right, any more questions, comments on this subject?
Well, the only thing that I would say is, because this is the only time we can talk about this as 3 commissioners together, is I would urge each of you, as I plan on doing, to send an email to the superintendent, copy the Board of Education, copy the 2 assistant superintendents that are involved, and Mr. Castillo, and express your views on why this 1/2 of an FTE for administration is necessary.
Thank you, Commissioner Roeder. All right, we are going to move on to item 6 on the agenda, and that is public comment. So if anyone would like to make a public comment, we have 15 minutes. Now is your time. Public comment going once. Public comment going twice. So to no public comments. All right, going to item 7 on our agenda. Our next meeting will be our regular PC meeting. That will be June 1st, Thursday, tomorrow, 4:30 to 7:30. And then we have another special on the special meeting on June 7th, but our next meeting will be tomorrow, June 1st, Thursday, 4:30 to 7:30. With that, thank you, everyone, yes, ma'am.
A question about the special meeting on the 7th, just so we have the time. This one started at 3 o'clock, but my understanding is the special meeting on the 7th starts at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. And is it true, is there a Board of Education meeting on the 7th?
Yes. And there's a special board meeting tonight.
Right.
And there's a board. Sorry.
We're at 126?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, with that, we are adjourned.